Canada has pulled out of the 1997 anti-global warming Kyoto Protocol, saying the treaty is not working. The departure comes a day after further climate talks in South Africa led to a new agreement, which is set to replace Kyoto by 2015. Well, let's try and make sense of all of this with Piers Corbyn. He's the founder of the Weather Action Foundation. Joins me now live in London. So Canada withdrew from the treaty, saying it's meaningless without the involvement of the world's two worst polluters, China and the US. But surely Canada's being irresponsible, is it not, by not playing its part in battling climate change?
Well, of course, I don't believe in man-made climate change because there is no evidence for it. In fact, carbon dioxide is controlled by world temperatures rather than the other way around. So, frankly, I'm glad that Canada have left the Kyoto Protocol process, and I hope it heralds the collapse of the whole thing.
But do you believe there is actually climate change going on, though?
Oh, climate change is going on, and the key aspects of the big, very extreme events that happened in the last 18 months were predicted by us at Weather Action using solar activity. Carbon dioxide has zero effect. I repeat, zero effect. No effect whatsoever. They have no evidence for their claims, only evidence against.
So this Kyoto agreement, is it a waste of time? And indeed, we see Canada pulling out of it, and the treaty is supposed to be continuing until 2017. Do you think other countries will pull out?
Well, I think so, and I hope so.
As we've reported, a new set of tariffs have been added to American exports of large automobiles into China. Though some doubt the move will significantly affect the car market, it has already led to outrage in the US. Here's more.
New tariffs on American auto exports came into effect on Thursday, hitting a vehicle export market worth nearly $4 billion. Vehicles affected include SUVs and other large vehicles, such as the Cadillac Escalade made by General Motors Co. and the Jeep Grand Cherokee from Chrysler Group LLC. Their prices will rise by as much as 22%. This comes on top of existing duties as high as 25%. GM, along with most American car makers, had set up joint ventures and factories in China, whose products are unaffected by the tariffs, which may mean shifting even more production to China than the companies have already done. Some doubt the effect that the tariffs will have on actual sales, as most buyers of these vehicles are well off enough not to be deterred by rising prices.
I think it doesn't really affect people of our class and status who buy these types of cars because the tariff rate only takes up a small percentage of the cost.
The Chinese regime is outstripping the World Bank as the largest lender to Africa. The BBC reported that the World Bank offered a total of $11.4 billion in loans to African countries last year. But the Chinese regime gave more, providing nearly $10 billion just to Ghana and billions more to a host of other countries. In some places like Zambia and Cameroon, the Chinese regime gave 10 times as much as the World Bank, and without any conditions like government transparency or anti-corruption measures. And Chinese currency is replacing World Bank dollars, becoming the new currency for investment in credit-poor African countries.
Hello everyone, welcome to Global Government News. Today is Friday, December 16th, 2011. I'm Darko. This is my website, GGNonline.com, and DDarko2012 is my YouTube channel, so go in there and check that out. Okay, the first article I have up is Census shows 1 in 2 people are poor or low income, squeezed by rising living costs. A record number of Americans, nearly 1 in 2, have fallen into poverty or are scraping by on earnings that classify them as low income. The latest census data depicts a middle class shrinking as unemployment stays high, and the government's safety net phrase, talking about unemployment benefits and that and welfare, the new numbers follow years of stagnating wages for the middle class that have hurt millions of workers and families, and that's basically what the work longer, harder for less is. Jobless rate in UK tops 17-year high. Britain's unemployment rate has topped 17-year record high, with total numbers hiking to million. I'm not sure if that's the actual real unemployment number like the United States, where it's those that are no longer receiving benefits but are still unemployed. Then we have Illinois debtors thrown in jail. Lisa Madigan working to stop debt collector arrest warrants. So, and it says here some Illinois residents struggling to pay off their debt have yet another thing to worry about, getting thrown into jail. So WBEZ reports creditors in the state of Illinois have figured out a way around laws that prevent them from putting debtors in jail. And the number of people being issued arrest warrants linked to unpaid bills is growing. Collection agencies can reportedly file a lawsuit requiring a court appearance, and if the defendant doesn't show up for their hearing, an arrest warrant can be issued. The practice has been more often, here's that word again, a stagnant economy, and Illinois Attorney General wants to do something. It says here NPR spoke to one Illinois woman who was shocked to learn that a warrant was out for arrest. Take, for example, what happened to Robin Sanders in Illinois. She was driving home when an officer pulled her over for having a loud muffler, but instead of sending her off with a warning, the officer arrested Sanders and she was taken right into jail. That's when she found out about the warrant, and it says Sanders owed $730 on a medical bill. She says she didn't even know about the collection agency having filed a lawsuit against. Then we have Americans face increasing energy costs. No surprising, Americans depend heavily on energy. U.S. uses 25% of the world's oil consumption, but as the country uses more energy, the costs rise. If you're low income, the costs are crippling. It says here electric bills have skyrocketed in the last 5 years, and this is a turnaround from a 25-year span when Americans enjoyed staple power bills even as they use more electricity. Then the next article I have up for you is fuel taxes are pricing motorists off the road, claim campaigners as car use plummets. That's right. It says ministers were accused of pricing motorists off the road after figures reveal that car use has dropped to its lowest level for 8 years. That's right. It revealed that less than 1 pound in every 3 pounds collected in motoring taxes goes towards road maintenance. This is the argument I made so many times before about how the people that support governments and statism always go back to the roads, and then the money doesn't even go towards it. School turns heating off to save the planet. So before I was talking about shooting your ashes, your remains into the sky, into space to save the planet, and then the box cutter in a box package. It's a suicide kit. Go ahead and slice your wrist. Now you can turn off your heat to save the planet. Some people like me, I just don't have my heat on because, I'm trying to save money because I can't afford a bill. But I'm still warm enough. I got my stocking hat, my gloves on and stuff like that. But I wouldn't do it for the planet. That's just stupid and ridiculous. A head teacher got a roasting yesterday for turning the school heating off on one of the coldest days of the year to save the planet. Next up, homeless households. And that's pushed a lot. And that teacher probably thinks that she was doing the right thing. And that's the sad part. Some people call it brainwashing or mind control, or they're just misinformed, really, So it says here, homeless households increased by 13%. Recession cuts and high rents have contributed to an alarming leap in the number of homeless people in England. And then we have report child homelessness up 33% in 3 years. Try to get rid of that. 1.6 million children were living on the street in homeless shelters or motels, or doubled up with other families last year, according to the National Center of Family Homelessness, or on family homelessness. And also living in cars is a big thing. It's actually one of the biggest things. Part of being homeless is not so much on the streets, so you don't see them, but there's a lot of people living in their cars right now, and they're actually, I don't know how, but they're still attending schools and stuff like that. But districts see rise in homeless students. So again, I don't know how you can be homeless and be a student if you're not, paying property taxes or something like that. But I guess you can. I guess there's ways around it. It says here, hunger up in U.S. cities, more to come, says mayors. Survey of 29 U.S. cities shows hunger has risen in the most of them in the last year and largely expected to increase in 2012, the U.S. Conference of Mayors said on Thursday. The super cities, right, like Rahm Emanuel, Chicago, who wants to declare Chicago their own state. Santa, can I have my money for the heating bill? How recession-hit children are asking for fewer toys this year for Christmas. Then next up, give me my presents or Santa gets it. It says here, a spoiled girl 13 demands presents or says Santa will die and I'll cook his reindeer. That's right. Look at that luck, too. Bad Santa at Logan Hyperdome taunts family of autistic Asperger's children. And it says here that the shopping center Santa mocks disabled boys, asks boys if they want a jail cell for Christmas. And mom says she was horrified at the treatment. So next up, remember Satan Claus, not to ruin Christmas or anything. It should be a time of giving and all that stuff. But Gang of Nine, who beat autistic teenager so badly she was off school for 10 months, escaped without any punishment. Says this Miss Russell, 16, was punched about 20 times in the face. Says 4 girls and 5 boys let off, and police handed just one of the mob a caution. So there you go. And those are actually the worst groups, the young people, these teenagers. And I don't want to sound like an old fogey because it seems like people are always saying that, but maybe it's for a reason. Maybe it does get worse and worse and worse and worse as far as society and morality goes. But they're just there was a cutting edge radio show that I did, and one of it was I had an author on there. And he was saying that his biggest fear was teenagers, was a pack of young people, young children, in like Postman or, basically apocalyptic type times when the shit hits the fan and people are trying to get by, Mad Max type thing. The young people are going to be the worst to deal with because they're just going to be in packs and they're going to be vicious and ruthless. Copper thieves halt 100 hospital operations after stealing power cables from generator. That's right. And Jobless, so remember the 3 options of survival. The last is stealing. Joblessness or jobless Americans face benefit cuts. So they're getting ready to cut their benefits on New Year's Eve as the U.S. Congress remains divided over the issue. So, but it says here, Craigslist job averts lured unemployed to their deaths. That's pretty scary. It almost sounded like a psyop at first. Go on Craigslist and try to find a job and then scare people to look for work on, But basically he said that the men were simply killed for pleasure. That's the possibility. Pretty sick. And that was in Ohio. A lot of weird stuff going on in Ohio. I don't know if they get special chemicals in their food or they get extra pulses or weird psychotronic pulses and stuff like that with the towers and satellite transmissions. But a lot of weird stuff goes off in Ohio where mothers are just killing their families and stuff like that. Is 80 the new retirement age? Many Americans think so. Well, you shouldn't think so. You should know so because that's what you're living right now. Secret Coca-Cola recipe displayed at a museum. So, but they're not going to show it. Why? Because Coca-Cola says products for poison. That's right. They have poisonous products. That's why they have to keep them secrets. Occupy Wall Street calls for a national hunger strike. And being that most of these Occupy people, like I said, they have good intentions and everything, but they're being led like sheep off a cliff here. Into this, quote, communist anti-capitalist movement. They're calling it anti-capitalist. But either way, if they're going to go on a hunger strike, I think it's pretty scary because if you've ever seen these videos of a lot of these protesters, they're what? They all chant. One person says something and they all start saying it like zombies, literally like zombies. And if one goes on a hunger strike and they all go on a hunger strike, they're all going to die. So, and they're not going to get what they want with that. So the people in Tibet and that monks have been doing that for a long time. And even in China, when they try to self-immolate and burn themselves, they actually get arrested. They can put the fire out and the Chinese regime puts them in jail and they're never seen again. Bailout payback, realtor double counted home sales for the last 5 years. So that's right. House passes $1 trillion budget bill and avoids, a shutdown, another threat of a shutdown. It's like I said before, not really going into stateless society or anything, but just generally, it should just shut down. Shut the effer down and let's restart here. So, but they're going to keep tossing it out in front of the American sheeple who think that they need it in order to survive and be free. They need a government that enslaves them to be free. Somehow that rationale works with them. That's why I say if it's so democratic and free and voluntary, then if you could just voluntarily pay your taxes, then most people would not pay their taxes and they wouldn't be a government and they'd be more prosperous. So it's a bombshell to some people, but not to me. I already knew the truth 2-3 years ago. Fed emergency bank rescue totaled $29 trillion over 3 years. That's right. Nobody can know about it. It says here Greek bank runs hit record, unprecedented 6.8 billion euros in deposits pulled from Greek banks in October. Then next up we have Fitch downgrades 8 global banks, including BNP, Bank of America, Deutsche, and Morgan Stanley, and then SocGen. Here we go. Oh, Societe Generale, it must be Swiss. Another name change for former Blackwater firm Z Services to Academy. But they're not the only terrorist organization that's rebranding their image. Al-Qaeda is rebranding itself to boost its image as well, because they're losing membership, because people are realizing that, well, the government sponsors them, and they're finishing up Iraq, an army of soldiers to be replaced by an army of businessmen, oil men. Australian authorities to shut down health department after officials steal $11 million from government coffers in 1 week. And of course, government fat cats in Australia get a Christmas pay rise more than Obama.